Mr. Durham, thank you for being here today. On October 3rd, 2016, the FBI met with Christopher Steele, who confessed to relying heavily on a Russian national living in Washington, D.C. as a subsource. That subsource was later identified as Igor Danchenko. Steele not only used Danchenko to create the dossier, but according to your report, Steele was unable to corroborate any of the substantive allegations made in the dossier. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Even after the FBI offered Steele $1 million if somehow he could actually follow through and underscore some of those specific items. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So the FBI interviewed Danchenko and Steele's subsource, the Steele subsource, for 3 days, from January 24th through January 26th of 17. However, according to your report, Danchenko could not provide any evidence corroborating allegations contained in the dossier. Is that correct?
That's a fact.
And yet the FBI paid Danchenko $220,000 during his time as a confidential human source. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And did the FBI propose making continued future payments to Danchenko totaling more than $300,000?
That's correct.
Danchenko becomes a confidential human source, then enlists his own subsource, Charles Dolan, as was brought up earlier, who was a Democrat operative and had previously served as an advisor to Hillary Clinton's 2008 presidential campaign. Is that your understanding? Is that correct?
That's correct.
Did Danchenko ever disclose his relationship with Charles Dolan to the FBI that you're aware of?
He did not during the interviews that were conducted in January. Subsequently, he was specifically asked in an interview with his then handler, do you know Charles Dolan? If you listen to the recording, he hesitates for some awkward period of time and said, yes, I know who Dolan is. So he acknowledged knowing Mr. Dolan.
Do you think it had anything to do with he was simply worried that disclosing a Democrat operative as a subsource might jeopardize the whole payroll deal that the FBI had set up with them?
And we lay these facts out as we do other facts in the report and leave it to others to draw the reasonable conclusions or inferences from those facts.
Very good. Of the hundreds of individuals who the FBI interviewed through the course of Crossfire Hurricane and Miller's special counsel investigation, this came up earlier, was Charles Dolan ever interviewed by the FBI?
He was not.
Do you have any insight as to why the FBI would not interview him or overlook such a high-profile person in this whole investigation?
That's something of a mystery. Going back to October 3rd, according to the ALAT, the Assistant Legal Attaché for the Bureau, when he first, going back to July 5th, when he first met with Steele, Steele had indicated to him at the time that HC was aware of what Steele was doing. When the Bureau went back to interview Steele on October 3rd about matters relating to Crossfire Hurricane, Steele, in fact, had provided the Bureau with Dolan's name as somebody who might have information relating to Trump, but he was never interviewed. So yeah, I don't know why they never interviewed Trump. I'm sorry, why they didn't interview Mr. Dolan, but they didn't. The explanation that was given to the intelligence analyst who's referred to in the report essentially was that that would be outside the scope of their mission, outside their role.
Very good. You note in your report on page 168 that one of the analysts of the Miller team was told, quote, to cease all research and analysis related to Dolan, unquote. This was the same analyst who, according to your footnote, prepared a timeline in the event she were later interviewed about her role on the Miller Special Counsel investigation. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Igor Danchenko had also relied on other subsources, namely Olga Galkina and Sergei Milin. When the FBI interviewed those two subsources, were either of them able to verify the information in the Steele dossier?
Well, speaking first to Miljan, We interviewed Milian as well. He's outside the country. He claims to fear for his safety and whatnot, but he adamantly denied ever talking to Danchenko or providing any information akin to what was in the Steele reporting. In fact, he was a supporter of President Trump, which made it seem highly unlikely that he would be providing derogatory information to somebody he had never met or spoken to. So that's as to Milian. With respect to Ms. Galkina, Ms. Galkina was somebody who provided some information to Danchenko, provided some information to Dolan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm out of time.
Gentleman yields back.